Here. All right, you'll have to bear with us, we're gonna do a quick closed session. We need looking for a motion to do a closed session.
Motion for closed session.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Charleroi?
Yes.
Mr. Dewey?
Yes.
Mr. Harper?
Yes. All right, bear with us, it shouldn't be too long. Yes.
Tomorrow's gonna be a crazy small day. Then they tried to do a 180. But it failed. Baseball.
All right, no formal action will be taken due to the closed session.
Thank you.
We're going to now open the meeting up to public comment. Statements, brief for public comment. Basically, you got 5 minutes. Anybody for public comment?
Good evening, Joe Fallon, 32 Clubhouse Road. I have one question first about where we are and why. And this is knowing that none of you were sitting here at that time. When I looked over the redevelopment plan that was dated August 2021, page 16 at the bottom, last paragraph, and under other actions, it reads, as an essential part of any redeveloper's agreement, the township may request that a designated redeveloper provide improvements or upgrades to the public utilities and related infrastructure that will serve the redevelopment area as they relate to any impacts from a proposed redevelopment project. The question becomes, why are we indebted to pay $2 million to extend the water line? And you all weren't here, so I'm not asking you. I'm putting it out there more as an example of what happened and why did this go the way it went. We have the property here, and this is going into the future. We have the property here. People want to build here. If they want to build here, why are we providing them additional profits as redevelopers? An individual doesn't get that. If someone were to build a house, they have to pay to get that water line put into their house. Township's not giving it away. I, for one, as a taxpayer, don't want to see this happen again. I don't like the development to begin with because I think we're going to live with these consequences into the future. This is not we'll get it built and it'll be okay. We're going to be facing problems with this. The The other interesting part about this is, or a question more than anything, I read the plan. Where is the benefit for the township? I'm looking at this, we're giving them an abatement for 5 years. We're having a age-restricted community, which means limited taxes in any case, because when they age into getting their property taxes frozen. We still have to provide the fire, the police, and trash, which is going to cost the township more because we're expanding the area they have to go in and collect from. And so I find that not an advantage. I read the plan and it said it was going to be an economic plus, but I don't see that. Even if we get a town center here per se, it's easier for them to head west, where they're located. So I'm not sure where the real advantages are for the township residents at this point. It looks like we're the ones that are paying the bill. The other is kind of tangential, but this development is going to require, I'm assuming, code inspection. It's going to have to be here, somebody watching over to make sure they're building to the codes and the agreed upon outlines of what they can and can't do. Someone has to be inspecting all of this. And as a side note on that, last meeting I saw it. We have a part-time person that's one day, maybe nights, that's what I understood. I don't know if he's still going to be working here under those conditions, but I can't see how that works. When you have a development of that size going in and having a part-time person. And just because of that, when I looked up in kind of online, the salary that gentleman is getting compared to full-time people, he's almost 40% higher for full-time people. His salary, part-time, is 40% more than a full-time person, average in the state. According to my research online, it's under $100,000 for these people. So maybe I'm missing something, but if we only have a part-time person, how is that going to work with this development?
Again, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Comments? Sure, Charles, answer something.
As you noted, this was under the previous administration that made all these agreements. And that should be a warning to everyone. Don't elect a patriarcha for 3 consecutive terms. We're stuck with contracts. These contracts were not made between individuals. They were made between a company and a township. That means we cannot simply throw it aside.
Where are these contracts? Oprah is a China.
Thank you, Joe.
And Joe, if I may also, you were speaking about a gentleman we had just hired for the inspections department. A lot of misconceptions about he's only working 1 day a week for us. The only way he's gonna work 1 day a week for us is if he works 24 hours in 1 day, because that's what his contract is, 24 hours a week. So if he wants to work 7A to 7A, although that doesn't work feasible because nobody's gonna take an inspection at midnight or 3 a.m., you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's 24 hours, sir, it's not 1 day, a week.
I appreciate that. I'm going off the article in the paper,
Yes.
so that's all I can base it on. Looking at it part-time, let's say part-time. If he has to be employed over there for 4 days, that's how I was coming up with, all right, it's 1 day a week. But 24 hours is,
Yes.
yeah. But even so, we're looking at everything he has to do with Township now, plus with this kind of development coming in. And if I may just add on to this, are we at the point where we cannot back away from this development? Are they asking for some kind of amendments and changes, or we're now at the point of locked in? All right, so we can't back out of this. Okay, I didn't think so, but I wanted to ask the question because I'm sure a lot of people out here.
Okay,
Yeah,
Jim.
that's what I thought. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next person for public comment.
Good evening, council. My name is Robert Sweeney from 200 Arabella. During this first round, a couple years ago, I had written down on one of the comments, what it would take this township to actually have this development in here, and I'm glad that Joe touched on the utilities. That was one of the things I looked at, was the water supply and the sewage supply. And then getting electric in there, because it's gonna cost this township millions of dollars to upgrade everything that goes into that township, or into that development. And unless it's baked into the cake, it's really gonna cost us, the taxpayers, a lot of money. And seeing that we're going through, because that's news to me that this is going through, this is a done deal, that this should be baked into the cake, as we say. So I appreciate your time. I've lived here for over 20 years. I love this town, I love the speed of it. I retired military here, reserve. I lived all over New Jersey, lived down at the shore. Fast paced down there. Browns Mills is a nice area. It is slowed down. This is a lot better than most towns around here because of the woods, the outdoors, the birds. I mean, this is a good place to live. And I hate to see that getting taken away by a lot of, more development in the area. So, thank you for your time.
It's good to hear, sir. Thanks for your service.
Thank you.
At Guthrie, 317 Birmingham. I realize that none of the council members we have now, were any part of this, contract or agreement back in August of 2021. And I can't emphasize more how important it is to make sure that we have council members that are looking out for the residents. And, I mean, I don't even understand why, a working farm was declared in need of redevelopment. It seems like there's in need of improvement and in need of redevelopment contracts. There were like multiple ones made back, with the previous administration, on properties that were not in need of redevelopment and did not need improvement. That being said, I feel like these properties and the way the sale took place was all handled and done illegally. We're kinda, with this new council, I keep on hearing, we cannot do anything about it. We're already got a contract, we're locked into this stuff. And then the developer keeps on asking for more and more and more. I've read the state of legislation, 219th legislator of the state of New Jersey, that goes into this, where abatement laws are given or tax exemption, 5-year exemptions. And all of them is what is given to a developer or even a homeowner when their property is in need of redevelopment or needs improvement. And it's like giving them a break while they're doing these improvements, so that by the time the improvements are done, they get regular tax rates. This new construction, there's nothing to be improved. You know, there's nothing in need of redevelopment. They're destroying a farm, a beautiful brand new barn, which is, in the last council meeting, it was already said that everything on the property is in perfect condition, to build homes. Also, when looking, I read the municipal tax abatement handbook, and before you can even consider or introduce or decide to give some kind of 5-year tax abatement to the contractor, one of the things that's in here is developing an internal review committee. Has a internal review committee been created to see if it benefits the residents and the taxpayers here in our township? There's a lot of steps involved in this. I mean, there's like pages and pages of things that's required before anything like this can be introduced. Plus a municipal cost of service analysis should be done, and they show you exactly how to do it in this handbook on page 11. I don't believe any of this stuff has been done. I don't believe a committee has been created. So I believe the introduction of anything or consideration for an abatement should be either tabled or just not given, at least until our council that we have now can review this handbook and see if we are following all the guidelines to have this contractor fall into this category. Kind of like the last gentleman said, if I was to get a gas line brought up to my house, I'd have to pay to have it run down the road, up into my property and hooked into my house. The township's not gonna pay for that for me, so why are we having to pay for all of this stuff for a multi-million-dollar or billion-dollar, or these contractors that have money that, you know, to do this stuff, you know, being brought down on the residents. We have other things that we have to be concerned about, like our school taxes being hiked up, which is a grave concern on everybody's mind at this moment. And to hear that we're putting out millions of dollars to put in the infrastructure for a new contractor who wants to build homes and get a tax abatement, to me it sounds just totally ridiculous. And I hope you guys take that in consideration. I mean, I wish there was something we could do about this contract. I'm sure if you dig deep enough, and maybe our lawyers dig, maybe there is something we can do to make this better for the residents. But eliminating any kind of school tax and giving any kind of tax breaks is something that I'm totally against. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
Good evening, my name is Karen Pritz. I'm at 119 Fort Dix Road. I'm a 46-year resident of the township. I wasn't able to attend the session where they spoke about the water line, but I did watch it the next day on wherever that thing is on the computer, which I like because sometimes I can't come to the meetings. They were talking about how many people will be served by extending the line and increasing it, I believe it was 10 inches. I'm just north of North Pemberton Road, and for 30 years I've been asking for a larger water line for the water department. They're out there probably 4 or 5 times a year digging it up because we have leaks. When they installed the line, I think it was probably 75 years ago, it was a 2-inch galvanized line. I don't know how big it is now, but there's no way it's 2 inches because my pressure's horrible. If they're doing any work or washing any vehicles down the street, my water pressure's horrible. So I can't imagine what it's gonna be like when you hook up 350 residential homes to the water system. Another thing is I read about the 5-year tax abatement, and I don't have much problem with that. But that farm is no longer being farmed, and under farmland assessment, you have to pay back rollback taxes for 2 years plus the existing year. And my question is, was the developer given an abatement for farmland assessment rollback taxes? Because I know they didn't pay cheap for the property, and the value of your farmland assessed value is compared to what the market value is, and they pay the difference. So there's a nice chunk of change the township wants to make sure that they get back in the coffers. So Mike, I don't know if you can answer the question. That wasn't part of the abatement, I hope. Not? Good.
Is that all you've got?
Yes,
The
thank
roll-
you.
Yes, the farm did pay the rollback taxes, and it goes back 3 years, and, so we did receive those funds. Anyone else for public comment?
Hello, Eric Howard, 162 North Pemberton Road. How are you all tonight? I hope we can end this really quick and turn this down fast because the Flyers' 5th game starts at 7 o'clock. So, everybody on the board came here probably because of one thing that affected you in your life. Because you're all volunteer, you're not getting paid. These guys came here for paycheck and that's their profession. You all just decided.
Before they light you up, we are getting paid.
Well, a little bit, but yeah, it's not sure, nothing retirement. But anyway, you decided to run for this because of probably one thing that bugged the heck out of you. And then you said, I'm gonna make a change. But now you have to represent something that bugs everybody. Everybody has one thing. So now you guys have to be versed in all of that. So I applaud that you guys came up with it. But, so this is our one thing. So hopefully you can appreciate that your one thing and our one thing are just as important to each other. Somebody said about the redevelopment, that the redevelopment was really based off of the buildings, saying that the buildings couldn't be used. That was needed to be redeveloped, that that was the blight. I've had opportunity to be on that property several times since that plan, and I can tell you that there were antique cars, hot rods, commercial landscaping equipment in those barns, and they were pretty safe. There was nothing wrong with those buildings. So now, somebody already said, I think you said it, Charles, that was the past administration. Appreciate that, but that sentiment does feel a little bit old and stale. We hear it a lot. Our town is not averse to lawsuits for stupid things that shouldn't happen, that we have to defend ourselves against. Why don't we sue that that was an illegal move, that it should not have been redeveloped? Now, the other part of it is that a redevelopment is supposed to be for an area, for a specific area. Right after the redevelopment happened, I spoke with David Frank. And I said, David, how could this happen? He goes, oh, it was me. I said, what's spot zoning? He goes, no, it's not. I said, tell me, what's the definition of spot zoning? And to shorten it, it is to rezone something for the sole benefit of one landowner. Now, if you look at that redevelopment zone, what did it do? It went right around a little keyway around Dave Winrow's property, which used to be Greenberg's property, but he sold it off. So they went right around that area, did not include that into the redevelopment zone. That is spot zoning. So I say we go back and say that the redevelopment plan is illegal because it was spot zoned. And we should sue if it takes that. Because we're gonna be sitting with this forever, and it's gonna cost us a lot more. Several years ago, I spoke with a teacher about the cost of what it takes to educate a child. That this development's gonna bring in a lot of children, it's probably gonna bring in some. But right now, well, a couple of years ago, 3-4 years ago, This teacher told me it costs us about $10,000 a year for each student that we currently have to educate the child. Whose taxes are $10,000 for just your school portion of your taxes? Anybody? Nobody in here. So we're already at a loss. We're going to be at a bigger loss. Somebody else mentioned about getting your taxes frozen at 65. Yes, we do have a large contingent of military people that can come in here. It's a great community. We want them here, but they're not going to pay taxes either. We're going to be straddled with this. Our taxes are going to go up even more than they currently are supposed to go up. I think that we should buckle down. Our issue is not your issue. We should sue, if it takes that, to reverse that redevelopment plan and this goes away. Aside from that, they absolutely should not get any variances at all or an abatement. They want to come in and make money, they should pay the full freight. And if they don't like that, they can leave. And the county will preserve that land. They will preserve that land. I talked to them and they said that they would. Absolutely, they would pay the $6 million. That's all.
No, I do intend to answer. First of all, the township was the one that did the redevelopment and rezoning. Therefore, the only thing that we could sue would be ourselves.
Sure.
We,
The last council.
you can't sue the individual councilman.
Sue yourselves then. We made a mistake, let's correct it.
Eric, you and I spoke extensively on that spot zoning. You and I both know that wasn't a mistake that was made.
Absolutely.
Mistakes are not, they're not called mistakes when they're intentional, right?
Yep.
Okay, good evening. My name is America Phillips. I've been living in Pemberton Township for 46 years. And when me and my husband were purchased this property, nobody coming out and told us we can get a abatement for 5 years. Okay? And the way I feel it is, why? As a taxpayer, because you think that we the taxpayer are paying the millionaires, and instead the millionaire paying the town. And the way I look at it is there is 3 steps. We don't have enough police force in here for cover the city for the square mile. We don't have enough firefighters in here. Now with the garbage, pay more money, but they get picked up only once a week. They're going to clear the side before they clear the side. We were here first. And I just hope our council or the township who run the show, what is the mayor tonight? I don't see it. What happened? He should be here, okay? That's part of his duties. Okay? When everybody took their oath, they oath for a reason, and you stand by that oath. But I just beg you, now as a citizen, and living in a fixed income, where down the road the school tried to get out for 26%. What is going to happen in this room in the future? And me doing a lot of walking, guess what? People are leaving Pemberton. Why? Because they saw that was their dream in their life, these homes. Not anymore. They screwing them up, them right and left. They living. I'm staying, but I'm going to fight to the end. 81 years old, going to 82 years old pretty soon, guess what? I'm going to fight and I'm going to be standing up in here and I will see every single face coming in and out. But I just hope that those developers in there, when I moved in here, was a beautiful farm. My children used to go play in those barns there with their children. And today, somebody decided to just sell it to the developer. The developer, they are coming this way because they know whether they got. But please don't give it nothing away. Don't let them. I know that the business was making with the other administration. That's okay. They screw us up. But we can fight to the end and we can turn that around too. Maybe it costs a lot of money. We already been paid plenty money in lawsuits anyway. That's me, but as a taxpayer, I do not want to see that development come to our place. Please. You know a firefighter, what is their salary for a firefighter? Ask for it, and you found it out. A police officer. We are in the other end, now this end will be not taken care. And he said they're going to bring more dispensaries. And they really saw they bring the dispensary, going to bring millions, keep dreaming. The people not that stupid, they want to grow their own stuff, they grow their own yard. Why am I going to pay you and therefore $150 for an ounce when I can get it in the yard? I'm not a drug person, but when I hear and I read, I know that our township is only between alcohol and drugs. I can take a walk and I can find it out. I found so many Q-tips. A lady said to me, how do you know what the Q-tips do? Clean your ear with something else too, okay? I know what the pens can do. And you know how I know all those problems? Because I do a lot of walking, I do a lot of cleanup in the community. And I see what is going on. But please do not pass nothing tonight. I'm begging you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Phillips. Anyone else for public comment?
Good evening, my name is Michelle Corman. First of all, I would just like to remind y'all didn't like it when meetings were, surprise meetings came about. Y'all didn't like it before. I'm not speaking for you because I didn't hear what you had to say back then. Second, where's Stan and Josh? Where are they? We need them tonight. Are you gonna vote on this tonight? That's the question. I was here many years ago. I don't know if this gentleman was here, where the whole room was packed with people who were against this development. And the Democrats all voted yes to it. And at the end of the meeting, I'll never forget this, because the head of Pemberton First, one of the heads of Pemberton First, took a pile of paper like a foot high. And when they voted no, dropped it on the ground. Everybody in the room was against it. Everybody was speaking against it, except for one person. I'm just saying, we're giving, Eric, Pat, other people are giving a lot of reasons why we could try to fight this. But apparently, it's probably not gonna happen. I think, I'm only speaking for myself, I'm tired of going along with everything and accommodating all these developers because we're so afraid of these lawsuits. If we keep doing that, we're gonna have development everywhere because lawsuit, we gotta say yes to whatever they want. Okay, what happened at the last meeting? Dan Dewey said they broke the, I might be wrong about this is what I understand to be, that they broke the contract because they didn't tear down the barn or the silos. So that's why they tabled this, and that's why they brought it back tonight. That's what I think I understood it to be. I don't know where Dan Dewey is tonight, or Josh. I don't know why they can't be on YouTube like they are.
Dan Dewey's listening. He's here, Michelle.
Okay, thank you. Okay,
this whole thing about the tax abatement, you guys didn't like it, you didn't like tax abatement and tax breaks for developers back when you were in the audience. You didn't either. Dan Dewey really didn't. Are you voting on this thing tonight? But the thing is that, I've heard and talked about Greenberg for like a long time now, just even recently. Nobody ever mentioned anything about a tax abatement for these people or a tax break. They got a lot of money, they don't need a tax break. I promise the residents, they got plenty of money. I know where they're developing, all over New Jersey, maybe even outside of New Jersey. I'm not sure about that, I can't speak about that. I thought we were gonna hear something. I mean, where are the representatives for Four Seasons? Are they here tonight? Anyone? Anybody know the answer to that question? The other thing is that, yeah, I think they have good reasons why we should try to fight this. It's not too late. As far as I'm concerned, really, this is just another way of you guys accommodating the developers and making excuses that this happened years ago. This tax abatement happened years ago. When Dan Dewey said at the last meeting, if I'm wrong, I'd like you to tell me, that they were supposed to tear down the farm and the silos, and they weren't gonna vote on this abatement, and possibly anything else, I'm not sure, until they tore them down. From what I understand, they're still up. They're still standing. Why didn't they tear them down? Amy, are you gonna tell me how much more seconds I have?
1 minute.
Okay, so, I guess, this was tabled the last time, why are you bringing it back so soon? There's a deadline? You mean they didn't have to tear down the barn before we have to vote on this? You can't say, no, we're not gonna do this? They were supposed to have torn down the barn. If anybody remembers, even in the audience, this going down a different way, please let me know when I come back and sit down. That's the way I understood it, from what Dan Dewey said, and if he's here, maybe he can speak on it. But my question is, are you gonna vote on this tonight? Is the representative for Greenberg here? And where's Josh? Okay. I think that's my questions. I have 3 questions. Are you gonna answer them? Although I know you're not obligated to, as was reminded by Mr. Doyle at the last meeting. Can you answer those 3 simple questions?
Yeah, go right ahead.
Since
Thank
you
you.
put it so nicely, absolutely, Michelle. Number 1, yes, we're going to vote on this tonight. Number 2, the things that Mr. Dewey said at last meeting, I supported him, which is why it got pushed. But however, it was not part of the contract that they had to be destroyed first. What Danny said and what I supported was that since Mr. Patriarca was able to get the property condemned and rezoned because the barns and the silo were such a blight, that should be the first thing the developer tackles. There have been no applications, according to Rowe and the inspections department, to do the barns. However, the machines were showing up to move the dirt. And Danny said, and I support him, that if they're going to start moving dirt, the first thing they need to do is tear down the reason that they had the farm condemned. Since this last week, they have, and Rowe will confirm, they have put in the permits are being approved, and they are going to jump on the barns and the silo immediately, so we're told. So we did get our point across, and they agreed to our demands, so to speak, if you will, and they're complying.
Still, why not wait until they got them down to continue with this at all, to entertain this at all?
It's not part of the contract, Michelle, to tear them down.
They don't have it gone up to their head to do that. Is there a representative for Four Seasons here tonight?
Not that we're aware of.
And they don't have to be, Michelle.
I
I
know.
understand what you're talking about, how they put it up on the screen and all. That was 5-6 years ago when this whole thing came to fruition. And correct me if I'm wrong, my guess is probably during COVID. I don't recall exactly, but I'm gonna guess somewhere around there.
So are you saying there would be a lawsuit if you made them tear that down first?
They filed for permits, they're gonna tear it down.
But why don't you, if that's true, why don't you wait till they tear it down to see if they really do that?
It wasn't part of the timeline.
So then, the answer to my, I didn't want me to wrap it up, but the last thing, the answer to my question is, the question was, they don't have to tear it down, it's not part of the contract, but now they're going to, but they're not going to, but they don't have to.
But there's not a timeline that they have to follow to do it. They have the permits, they are gonna do it.
I hope everybody understands what we're talking about, because I don't understand that, but I'm gonna re-listen to it, as you know.
To put it simply,
I don't know
we
about your
can't,
simpleness.
it's very simple. We got them to agree to tear it down, but we can't force them legally to do it any faster.
And so if you told them we're not gonna approve anything until you tear it down,
Can't do that.
there would be a lawsuit against you guys? Is that what you're saying, you can't do that?
That's called a modification to the contract,
Exactly.
Michelle, we can't do that.
Okay, okay.
Anyone else for public comment?
Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle.
Vicki Adams, 613 Sanders Drive. I was listening, I wasn't gonna say anything tonight, but I have a question for you, which I'm sure I won't be answered, but could the fact of this abatement have come up because you guys have had to make other deals with them as far as the water being paid by them instead of us? Is this something that you promised them in return? You weren't here, so you can't shake your head yes or no, because you weren't here, okay? Is this anything to do with any deal that was already made? Because giving a tax abatement is discretionary. You don't have to do that. And you are not making us money or losing us money, not making us money by giving them a tax abatement, you're actually losing us money. So it's just like you're paying somebody else to do it. So again, I'm gonna say, I don't think that they should get a tax abatement. You know, you guys have already spent so much of our money, we need to recoup some of those losses. And we get those losses refilled by taxes. And if you give them a 5-year plan, I don't know how many millions of dollars that would be. But that's not what is in the best interest of our township at this point. And you guys are supposed to be here in the best interest of our township. So unless the abatement was written into the original contract that you're not telling us about, or that it was a deal that was done on the side with all, not on the side sneakily, but it was a deal put in place because they gave us something else that we needed from them, I don't think you should do it. And if it is done that way, then maybe you need to tell us about it so we understand.
Mr. President, if I may.
Sure, I was going to, go ahead.
Vicki, I saw another side of you, I'm impressed. I didn't know you could be that polite. Thank you. The abatement thing, I promise you as well as everyone else in the room that solicitor sitting to our right, our conflict solicitor, is going to give a full description on the tax abatement, the history and everything. Am I right, Ed? Yeah. You're gonna get that tonight because I was insisting on the same thing, so it's gonna happen. You'll know the history on it. Because I can tell you, Vicki, I was the one sitting in the back of the room, as someone has so eloquently said 5 years ago, screaming against this Greenberg, in opposition of it, when a lot of people weren't here, but I still was. And I looked at Mr. Hornicle when the pilot program went through for the warehouse, and I asked him if there were any more tax breaks or abatements, and he flat out on the record told me no. Told me no. I stood in the back of the room that night, and I was told no, there's no more tax breaks or abatements being given out anywhere. And I was lied to. But you all will get the full tax abatement deal from Ed sitting to my right.
Tonight?
Yes.
And just so you know, that was done, that was originally ordinance 30-2021, which means the year September 2021, when they gave that abatement deal. We're just following through on what we were contractually obligated to do. Anyone else for public comment? Seeing none, we'll move on.
Hold on.
Okay.
did bring up last time that this isn't a consent agenda this time, but you kind of hide things. And Mr. Harper, on March 18th, you kind of glossed over the resolution for the shared services and wouldn't answer. So let's talk about this resolution. Before, instead of just having a summary, it basically just says authorizing, confirming, and approving the execution of certain documents. What are certain documents? What are you approving that you're hiding on us? And agreements in relation to the Greenberg Farm redevelopment plan as required to comply with the township. Why don't we ever get to see these resolutions, a full resolution you're gonna vote on? You just kind of gloss over, give us a summary, oh, it's all okay, we're gonna vote for it, and then we have to go find out what happened later. I request that you read this full resolution before you vote on it, top to bottom, every word. Next, the tax abatement. I haven't seen this contract that said the tax abatement was guaranteed. I know you have you're stating the ordinance that was done. How is an ordinance for tax abatement done before the property is even purchased? The property was purchased for $6.2 million in like 2023. The deal to make this property and to develop it was still in its infancy, and you guarantee a tax abatement with no financial analysis, nothing that according to the law you're supposed to do before you even offer a tax abatement and approve one? I know you're gonna all say, oh, it wasn't us back then. Well, it's still now. It shouldn't have been done. Should that ordinance should be repealed since it wasn't done correctly to start with? Next. On April 6th, Kay Hovnanian there's a notice of settlement that was with the county clerk on April 22nd, that they transferred the property to DRPNJ3 LLC. Why are they not part of this ordinance? Because they're hiding so that when Kay Hovnanian doesn't perform and you go to sue them, go after them, oh, that's the DRP. And DRP is like, oh, we didn't have an agreement with you. Where is all the protections for all that? You cannot do this ordinance without including them. So this ordinance isn't even right to approve for introduction because it's not complete. That's it.
Anyone else for public comment?
No answer is okay.
All right, we'll close public comment. Move on to resolutions. Resolution 131, 2026, authorizing, confirming, approving, executing certain documents and agreements in relationship to the Greenberg Farm redevelopment plan as required to comply with the township's fourth round element of fair share housing. What that is we agreed to the year 2025 to 2035. We have to provide so many affordable houses, low, moderate, and median income. 40 units are being built at the Greenberg Farm. That's according to the fair share housing. We're required by law to do that. This is just an agreement that Greenberg's going to do that according to the state law. We also, as part of the 131-2026, have a shared service which includes putting in a pedestrian traffic signal over by the Wawa and the train station, which was approved by our planning board and the county. We're just approving that they're going ahead and doing it so that the county can do their part and maintain it. It's going to be at their cost. And that's about it. Did I miss anything, Ed, or do you wanna?
Sure. So, it's my first time, actually, it's not my first time here, it's my first time up here. So my name is Evan Campbell, and our firm serves as conflict counsel for the township. And so, I'm here tonight to assist counsel with regard to two matters that are on the agenda. The first one, your council president has just reviewed with you, which is a resolution authorizing the township to execute 3 different agreements. And they all relate to the redevelopment of the Greenberg Farm, right? And that project is part of the township's fair share housing program. And as part of the township's obligation under the fair share housing program, we've represented to the court that 40 of those units will be affordable housing. And so one of the steps that's required as part of that process is to execute a notice of intention to tell the world, essentially put the world on notice that 40 of those houses will be subject to affordable housing. There's a declaration that's going to be recorded against the property to reflect that 40 of those units will be affordable housing. And the third document is a shared services agreement, which isn't really related to fair share housing, but it's related to the project itself. The planning board's approval of, I think, the first phase contemplates the traffic light at the Wawa on Fort Dix Road. And I drafted the resolution, rather than 3 resolutions. I thought it would be easier just to sum them up as one. I hope I haven't trespassed on anyone's good nature with 1 instead of 3, but it's 1 resolution authorizing the execution of those 3 documents. They're relatively straightforward. 2, put the world on notice that 40 of the units will be affordable housing. And the third is a shared services agreement, which is a county requirement to proceed with that. There's no costs incurred by the township. The developer picks up all of those costs. But the agreement that the county requires is called the shared services agreement. That's a summary of the first resolution. That's the resolution that's on the agenda tonight.
I heard you talk about 2, what was the third one?
It's 1 resolution authorizing the execution of 3 documents.
Right.
1 is referred to as a notice of intention to develop under the Fair Share Housing Act, 40 houses, 40 units. The second is a declaration of covenants that'll be recorded against the land, confirming that 40 of those units will be affordable housing. And the third is a shared services agreement between the developer, the county, and the township for the development of the traffic light to go basically adjacent to the Wawa on Fort Dix Road, that places the cost of those improvements on the developer. The county needs that signed off on in order for them to process the highway permits that are needed for that light.
Did that include something about the trail itself?
No.
It's nothing about the trail.
Just the light.
Any questions from council?
Maybe I could add one other point. Originally, there was a request for a formal joinder agreement. The last individual spoke about DRP3, and the redeveloper is prohibited from transferring title to the property to any third party unless it's specifically for the purpose of financing. And so the developer has advised the township that they intend, as part of a financing protocol, to have that property transferred to DRP3, which is essentially the financer. Think of it as a mortgage. It gives that lender security on that property, which is the exception to the general prohibition against transferring the property out. So I think that's a fair question, and that's something that the developer is proposing, but it doesn't require your action. They're authorized under the redevelopment law and under the redevelopment agreement to do that for the limited purpose of securing financing for the project.
Thank you, Ed, for updating everybody on that. Any
So
questions?
real quick, 30/20/21 does not guarantee a tax abatement like Mr. Harper lied to us about, and the redevelopment plan does not have it in there. I just read 30/20/21. There's not a single thing about tax abatement.
So
So it's not guaranteed. Where is it guaranteed?
My summary was not of the tax abatement.
No, I'm
ordinance.
talking about
It was
Mr.
only of
Harper's
the,
lie
only
to
the
us.
resolution for those 3 documents. We'll turn to the tax abatement next. The council wants me to.
Yeah, thank you. All right, let's settle this 1/31/2026. Any questions from council? No? Looking for a motion.
Motion to approve resolution 1/31/2026.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Charleroi?
Yes.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. Dewey?
No.
Mr. Harper?
Yes. All right. Moving on to 30-2026. Ordinance of the Township of Pemberton, County of Burlington, State of New Jersey, authorizing a financial agreement with KM Navian, Rand Cocos Creek LLC pursuant to 5-year exemption and abatement law. All right, I guess first, would the people like to hear Mr. Campbell's information, or would you all like to speak on it first?
Here first. Here first.
Oh, it's introduction, and that's right, yeah, no public. Yep, I'm sorry, my mistake. All right, then, Mr. Campbell, again, please help us out.
Thank you, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, you referenced ordinance 30-2021, and somebody in the audience referenced that as well as not authorizing a tax abatement. And technically, that's correct. In September of 2021, an ordinance was adopted, 30-2021, approving the redevelopment plan. About 2 months later, November 12th, 2021, the township entered into a redevelopment agreement. That redevelopment agreement specifically requires the tax abatement.
What page? I can't find it.
On page 27,
Okay.
paragraph 11. Sure, I'd like
to, please.
Sure. So paragraph 11 is entitled Payment of Lieu of Taxes Pilot. The redeveloper and the township agree that this redevelopment agreement for the project is contingent upon a tax abatement agreement pursuant to the 5-year exemption and abatement law that offers the site 40A21-1 for the dwelling units, period. The township agrees to introduce an ordinance authorizing the 5-year tax abatement and exemption agreement with the redevelopment, commencing pro rata as of the date of each certificate of occupancy for each of the residential units sold in a form substantially similar to that set forth on Exhibit G attached here too. The 5-year tax abatement and exemption agreement for the land development with residential units will be for the ultimate end user, in brackets, the residential purchaser, close brackets, of the property to pay to the township, commencing on the transfer of title to the ultimate end user, again, in brackets, residential purchaser, close brackets. A payment in lieu of taxes in accordance with the 5-year tax abatement program. Now, so it's the redevelopment agreement entered into the township, by the township and the developer in November of 2021. I don't have the ordinance reference, but I went back for minutes and my recollections, there's reference to it in a meeting back in 2021. And it's signed and approved November 2021. There's a few other things to understand about about what's proposed. First, this is the first reading. The program that's proposed doesn't give a tax abatement or a tax break on the value of the land. It is only a tax abatement or a tax break, if you will, on the incremental value for the construction of a home on the property. So you can imagine if hypothetically the lot is worth $100,000, whatever the tax is for the $100,000, there's no abatement. If the developer then spends hypothetically $300,000 on that property, the abatement applies to that increase in value, the construction cost, the incremental value. Originally, the developer proposed that the tax abatement be a 100% tax abatement on that increase for the first year, and then every year reduce over the 5 years. Went back to the developer and said, no, that the end user has to pay 20% of that increase in the first year, 40% the second, 60% the third, and the last 2 years, 80%. So it is a more favorable, an agreement with terms more favorable to the township than a typical 5-year tax abatement. It doesn't directly inure to the benefit of the developer. It only comes into play once the property is sold to the end user, and that end user will have to follow a protocol to make an application, essentially a form that they fill in saying, I bought it, there's a certificate of use and occupancy for the property, I'm in it, and I qualify for this 5-year abatement, and I get the benefit of it. So the redeveloper doesn't get a direct benefit from that. I'm not saying that there's no benefit. They are able to market their property with the benefit of an abatement, which makes it obviously more attractive for a purchaser, but they don't get the tax benefit. And they don't get a reduction in taxes until the property is sold out.
Excuse me, you're saying you don't know the resolution number or the ordinance number of this? You're saying you don't know that? Because I think you should know it so the people could read it, including me.
Sure. I can tell you that the redevelopment agreement was signed November 12th.
Right, but can
Signed.
you tell us the ordinance, the resolution number, can you look it up?
Um,
Can you find it out? Okay.
Let me talk a little bit more about the agreement and how it impacts the township, and then I'll see if I can find it. How's that?
That would be perfect.
Okay. So we've referenced that the earlier resolution that the township adopted, the township council adopted, related to certain agreements for fair share housing, affordable housing obligation that the township has. The redevelopment agreement specifically calls out the fact that the development will have a component of the development, first of all, that is all age restricted, and second of all, that a component of those new units will be affordable housing so that they help meet the township's burden of providing additional affordable housing. As part of that process, the township, like every other municipality in the state, had to get with very few exceptions, right? Everybody had to demonstrate to the court that they were in compliance with the fair share housing laws. And they went to court with a plan to basically tell the court, this is how we propose to meet our obligation. And Pemberton went and said, this is how we propose to make it. And a component of that, almost half of the township's obligation, are the 40 units from this development. And the court entered an order giving the township essentially protection from what's called a builder's remedy across the board, because the township demonstrated that they were complying with their fair share housing obligations. The risk of a township not complying with their fair share housing obligations is that a builder could come in and say, you're not meeting your fair share housing requirements, and therefore, regardless of what your ordinance says, regardless of what your zoning regulations say, I want to do X, Y, and Z, because a part of my development, X, Y, and Z, will help meet the requirement that the township is not living up to. And so you've got a redevelopment agreement which sets forth affirmatively that 40 units here are going to be part of your fair share housing obligation. You've got a court order which says affirmatively that this development is part of your obligation to be protected against a builder's remedy claim. And your redevelopment agreement, signed 5 years ago by nobody here, approved by nobody here, says that that redeveloper is going to get a tax abatement. So the ordinance that's being read and the proposed agreement has a couple of components that are worth noting. First, typically they go 100% abatement or reduction, followed by year 2, a 80% reduction, 60%, 40%, 20% before you go to 0. This is different. It's 20, 40, 60, 80, 80 instead of 0, 20, 40, 60. Secondly, I added 2 provisions to the ordinance. One, a prohibition against any end user taking advantage of the tax abatement program, and therefore, and in addition, taking advantage of any other program that the state may have to give, for example, seniors. There are a handful of programs which provide senior citizens with either the anchor program is one, and others which give them tax relief on their real estate property taxes. And so I put a provision in the ordinance, in the agreement, that would be entered into, prohibiting anyone who's going to take advantage of this tax abatement from also taking advantage of any other state program which would diminish their tax obligations. So essentially they can't go down. And I don't know if it was the mayor or council president suggested that. So I don't want, although I wrote it, I don't want to take credit for it. Your elected officials said, wait a minute. The second thing is I dropped a language in there which prohibits any property owner. I know this seems like self-evident, but there's a cap on the amount of the abatement that they can get under the law of 30% of the actual construction cost. It would be really unusual for a tax abatement to ever come close to that, but I put language in the document confirming that they can't get an abatement any greater than that, than the law would permit, which is that 30% threshold. So I understand that this is a very unpopular concept. It's my first meeting here, and I didn't, I'm just here, but I hear that, and I hear what council has said, that this is not an agreement that has great favor or great support. Unfortunately, you have a redevelopment agreement which says that the redeveloper will get it, and you've tied the redevelopment, the township has tied the redevelopment of this project into its fair share housing obligations. And the risks of backing out or not following through on your commitments, I think are twofold. One, this redeveloper could seek action. I understand there's maybe nobody cares if we get sued, but I would imagine that the developer could bring an action to enforce the township to comply with the agreement. And then more generally, if the township doesn't follow through on its obligations for fair share housing, then the township could be exposed to builder's remedies, not just from this developer, but from other developers. And so, for those who are encouraging council not to follow through on the obligations that are set forth in this agreement from 5 years ago, there are risks that are real, that the council has to consider and evaluate before taking the action, whether it's to approve or not to approve. But that's my summary, and I'm happy to answer any questions from council, and if you'd like me to answer questions from the public, I can do that as well.
Thank you again, Ed, for giving us all your information. And as you people see, we're not gonna not get anything on this. We're gonna get 100% of the value of the land every year. We are gonna get more than what was initially offered up as far as taxes, and it's something we're legally obligated to. I know you all talk about lawsuits, let's file a lawsuit, let them sue us. We're still stinging from the last person that, we're still settling lawsuits from that. And we'll get to a point where, we won't be insurable. All that adds up to, whether it's lawsuits or being uninsurable stuff, it all adds up to more paying out of the taxpayer's pocket. We're trying to do the least expensive thing that we can. Nobody really liked this deal. Nobody wanted to see a farm go away, but this horse has left the barn 6 years ago. You can't call it back in now. We did everything we could to make this deal the best we could. Our tax assessor was checking through laws. He was on the phone, several conference calls with the Treasury office, the state, to see what was legally allowed and what wasn't. We're obligated. I know you don't like hearing it. We're obligated, and it's the cheapest obligation there is. We're going to get some tax money. I know I heard people tonight talk about increased trash. Well, we bill separately for trash. So every house that comes along will pay a separate trash bill. Every house that gets hooked up to water and sewer, we will get paid for water and sewer hookups, and we will be getting paid our monthly water and sewer bills. Yes, is it the best? No, it's not the best, but it's not like we're getting zero for the next 5 years. We're slowly gonna get increases, and I can't say it any plainer than that. Anybody else like to comment?
Yeah, if I could, Mr. President. Every single argument that came up to the podium tonight came up to the podium 5, 6 years ago when this was coming to fruition, and it did nothing. It did absolutely nothing at the time when it should have been able to do something, when it could have been stopped. Biggest problem I have up here is there's nobody in this room closer to the Greenberg farm than me. I went to high school with both the Greenbergs, well, Eric, sorry. Closer, not geographically. I grew up with the Greenbergs. My brother in the audience tonight grew up with the younger Brian. We spent weekends up there running around in those barns that were supposedly dilapidated, ran around the hundreds of acres of corn and beans. That was our playground when we were little. You can't be upset with the man that owns the farm. He's allowed to do with his property what he's allowed to do. I mean, if you put your house on the market and you just don't like the person that comes up to buy your neighbor's house, is it right for you to go over there and tell your neighbor who they can and can't sell to? Mr. Greenberg had the right to sell his farm. The administration that was here opened the wrong door and pushed him through it. Back then, the farmland preservation was nowhere near what it is today. There is so much more money available now for farmland preservation, just like Eric said. We now have access to federal money to preserve these farms because we're within so far of as the crow flies from the military base. There's a lot more money available to us here in Pemberton, but it's too late. Mr. Greenberg was told back then, and he listened, he will not be able to preserve his farm. So he had an offer and he took it. You can't blame him for that. The deal was made. All we can do, and we knew when we won last November, or the month, November before, sorry, that this was going to come to fruition on us. So what do we go to work and do? We have to go to work and minimize the damage to the residents. So the one thing I can't do, I can't sit up here and vote with my heart, because I think I've made it pretty obvious where my heart is. Do I have to come out and say I don't want to lose the Greenberg farm? Because I think I've made it pretty clear. But my job now, my obligation is not to the 100 people that feel the same way I do, or maybe even 1,000. It's the 26,000 that it's going to affect. So when you sat in this room like I did, and you heard for years, we need rooftops. Mr. Dewey and I, as well as Harry and Matt when he was up here, we all said, we're not against development. How about smart development? That's what we said, smart rooftops. Not just throw it out there and let's catch whoever we can and give them a 5-year tax break. You want to know what a tax break to the Greenberg farm is to me? How about the less than 1% of Pemberton Township residents that are going to buy their retirement home on that Greenberg farm get a 100% tax break for the first 2 years? That's a motivating factor for me. That's something I would sign on, because then it sounds to me like we're keeping a Pemberton Township resident here in Pemberton Township for the rest of their life. That's smart development. It's not building a warehouse and giving a warehouse because we need revenue. Yeah, we need revenue. But you also cut them $750,000 tax break a year for 30 years. I set it up here before. Do the math. Where do you think that tax break, that billion-dollar corporation is going to go? It's going to go onto your shoulders. But it still happened. We need marijuana facilities, revenue. They're going to give us X amount of dollars out of their profits for the year. What did we get from what's promised, Ro? Less than 20% of what they promised us to make it a big, pretty flag? Let's have it. This is what you need to remember when you go to the polls. You made the right choice by putting us up here. That kind of development is going to stop. And it stopped when you put us up here. But unfortunately, some of the damage that was done takes years to come to fruition. And we're doing the best that we can to minimize the damage that's already been caused. You have to give us time to do what we can do. None of us up here are voting with our hearts. We have to vote with our heads, and we don't like it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Anybody else? Charles, anything to say?
Well, as I've said before, I think about things scientifically. I tore these agreements apart, piece by piece, and due to the language in those agreements, I came to the agreement with everyone else. We are bound by it. That's hard fact, based on the language of those agreements, based on the state statutes, and based on the way it was structured. The only thing I can say is this should serve as a warning going forward. We need to be far more careful about who gets put into office to make sure that deals like that aren't made in the first place.
Just one other comment. So the redeveloper agreement was adopted October 6, 2021, and the resolution was Resolution 258 of 2021.
So the one on the Pemberton website is old and not the most current one.
Okay. Move on.
Excuse me, before you move on, he did say he would answer the resident's question. I heard you say that. Did you not?
Sure.
The solicitor said he would answer the resident's questions. Did you not?
We'll answer
Solicitor?
a few questions, sure. Would you like to be the first one, Michelle? This is a little out of the norm, but we'll do it.
Well, he said so. So, if there was a lawsuit, who would fight that? And if they fight and won, how's that gonna affect our insurance rates? So if there was a lawsuit, why do we have all these solicitors if we never have any lawsuits? That's my
Their
question.
job is to keep us out of court, keep us from getting.
Michelle,
but
Michelle, you have
it
to
is-
answer, Michelle, understand one thing, I'm gonna explain this to you as best as it was explained to me. I'm not a lawyer, but I do remember from when I was working across the hall there, the one thing a lawyer has to do before he takes a case is he has to give us the opportunity of give us a percentage of success in front of the judge. Okay, so when we're advised as to whether or not something is a smart move to go through litigation, number one, we're spending your money, we're spending our money out of our pockets. Unless that attorney feels that it's a very, very good chance for a win and a good outcome for the township and to be successful, they're gonna frown on it. If they frown on it, we have to take their advice because that's what we're paying them for.
Okay, well, I just wanna say that so far, every solicitor that we have had has said, I don't think it's a good idea to follow through on this because there might be a lawsuit. When is there gonna be a time where one of the solicitors says, stands up and says, I'm gonna try to fight this? I'm gonna say one last thing. The solicitors or whoever's not wanting to fight any of these lawsuits, ever. There's never a lawsuit that somebody said, oh, there might be a lawsuit. And perfect example is your development. Cause that lawyer, remember him? He threatened lawsuits all the time, but there never was a lawsuit. So that's my argument against that. And I think it's a very good argument. I have something else to say, but luckily for you, I forget what it was.
Thank you.
Thank you for allowing the questions, Council, I really appreciate it. I have, I don't know if this is 2 or 3 questions. My first question is, it was stated that the land was purchased for, I think it was said 6.2 million in 2023. An example, my house burnt down in 2008. It was rebuilt in 2009. I moved into my new house, and right away the township reassessed the value of my house, and my taxes were doubled. Okay, so if the Greenberg farm was purchased for 6.2 million in 2023, and it is now 2026, are we taxing the property accordingly to the value of 6.2 million and not what a farm was being taxed at? Because if they're still paying farm tax, then I feel, let's get the money from the developer and let's charge them the proper amount of the land value of what they paid for it. Just like me as a resident, my taxes went up when I built a better house. That's one of my questions. My next question is, my understanding of this introduction ordinance is the abatement is not going to be given to the contractor. It's going to get given to the people that are purchasing their homes. Okay? 2 questions in reference to that. We all know that these rich people come out and they buy up all the affordable housing and then they rent it to the people. Now, if these homes become rental properties because it's being mass purchased by these companies, are we going to be giving them the tax abatement when it's become a rental property and it's not being purchased by one of the seniors? And then my last question was, like you were saying, that you are gonna take into consideration, like each person will be kind of like individual. At that point in time, the individual will have to apply. Is that when we're gonna create that internal review committee and see how it benefits the township? so that way we know that the residents are gonna be protected by everyone who is allowed to get this abatement. Of course, they'd have to meet that abatement handbook, correct?
First, as I said earlier, we did do the rollback taxes. They're not paying farmland assessment anymore, so we did get 3 years worth of rollback. So that was an increase coming into the town. Tax abatement doesn't take place until each house is sold. The affordable housing law says they have to meet low, moderate, median income. There's so many of each one. So some rich developer cannot come in and buy those. They're not qualified to buy those. And then, to the best of my knowledge, once that person sells that unit, that abatement's done. It doesn't carry on. If they sell it before the 5 years, that doesn't carry on to the next thing. And as far as that committee you're talking about, I think that horse has also left the gate 6 years ago when they approved this ordinance in 2021. It wasn't done correctly then. I don't know that we have a leg to stand on because we're obligated, as Mr. Campbell said, with affordable housing and other things.
I'll make copies of this and email it to the council members, because this is based on each application that gets submitted to the township, and each individual being given the tax abatement is supposed to be under review to make sure that it follows all of the guidelines.
Well, yeah, we'll take anything you send us into
Yes, well,
consideration.
in that case, then that council would be formed after the units are built.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
All right.
Just clarity. I just want to follow up on the question in regard to the affordable housing. So you're saying it would need to be owner occupied? If they sold it, does the new owner get that?
No, it does not carry.
So it doesn't, so if an investor comes in, they buy up 40 houses. and-
They can't buy, you have to qualify for the affordable houses. So nobody can come in and buy them as an investment.
So let's look at Lakewood.
Let's look at Pemberton Township.
Well, that's where I'm going with it,
Okay.
because that is a real thing, that is a real thing. But if they don't, they'll say that, so there could be somebody backing and you would never know. But if they do sell the property within that first 5 years, then any one of those points, then that abatement goes away.
That's correct. Does not carry past the original owner.
And just another question, not that it really matters here or not, but in regard to the fair share, didn't we one time long ago take other towns' share of affordable housing?
That's no longer allowed by law, from what I understand, under the
Right.
next round of affordable
Right,
housing.
but it gave us a lot.
That's
larger
why our number
percentage.
was so
That's why
low.
our number's so low, yes.
But then
They took
all-
that into consideration, yes, sir.
Right, but then also, isn't it possible to use your existing housing stock that is able to be considered affordable housing to go towards that needs redevelopment? I might be wrong, but I'm just asking, that you can already, because I thought there was part of the affordable housing plan to be able to use existing housing.
We did get so many units credit for one of the apartment complexes. I don't remember which one. I think it was, two of them. Brown. So we did get some housing credits for them. So, and again, that's what kept our numbers so low. Yeah, believe me, there's towns, I heard of a town the other day getting 1,400 obligation. Yeah, so.
Yeah, as I read it, going through the mountains of paperwork, the state really wanted us, was kind of leaning hard on us to put some affordable housing in this development, no matter what. And this was the minimum they would accept.
So, yeah, so after
No, we
this,
have,
there's no
we have
other
79
obligation.
total, but this is the biggest obligation, yeah.
So after this is done, quite hear you. There's still more obligation when this is done.
I believe we have a possible, for Global Link Development. If they, okay, so if they build, they have a certain obligation too. You know, if they don't come to fruition, then the state doesn't hold that against us, but if they do, they have to build a certain percentage also that will meet our obligation.
But so there's no other, housing within Pemberton that would qualify as affordable. I don't even know what the definition of affordable would be, because, you know, it could change from town to town, really. But so we can't use existing housing stock to say, look, we're pretty affordable.
We did use the apartment
And then that's
complexes,
it.
and that was all we were, yeah.
So what makes it affordable, and does it go off of the value of the existing housing stock in your town, or New Jersey, or, because I would think we're on the lower end as New Jersey goes.
The basis for percentages of affordable housing is actually based on the income of the person. We have to have a percentage of the housing that is sold to people that meet these income requirements.
Yeah, I think what Eric's asking is how do they come up with that number for us?
Where's the basis? Is it in New
The
Jersey,
state-
or is it
the
in the
state of
county?
the state of New Jersey came up with the formula. It's nothing that we have anything to do. I believe low income is 30% of what they consider, you know.
Median income.
Yeah, and then you have, the next level is 30 to 50%, and then the next level is 50 to 80%. Yeah, the state of New Jersey set that formula, we have nothing to do with that.
I'm just trying to get an understanding of it, not that it was gonna change anything with this development. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Ed.
I want to address what the solicitor said about resolution 258/2021. Back then, according to the minutes, tax abatement was never mentioned. It was just to approve the redevelopment plan.
No, it was to approve the redevelopment.
But the redevelopment plan
Redevelopment agreement.
that's posted on the planning board website is an outdated one that has nothing about tax abatement in it.
So there was an amendment, so the original redevelopment agreement is dated November 12th, 2021, and your meeting minutes from October 6th, 2021 reflect, that it was approved. I wasn't here then, right? And it was subsequently amended, so I don't know if what's up is the amendment or the underlying agreement.
The one that's on the website, on the planning board website, is August 2021. So basically, you're hiding that there was a tax abatement for 5 years. Because it's not there for anybody to see.
Mr. Saka, what you're referencing is the redevelopment plan, not the redevelopment agreement. Those are two different documents. You can OPRA the agreement and we will provide it along with the resolution that approved it.
Okay. This just comes up where, you know, keep resolutions out of consent agenda, be like the other towns, and show the full text of every resolution you're gonna vote on that day. Don't hide it all in just your summaries.
I think we've answered enough questions. Looking at, anybody's, would like, making a motion?
What's the date, Amy?
It can go on the May 6th agenda because we'll have it up on the website tomorrow, so we'll have these submitted.
Make a motion for a second reading on that agenda.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Doyle?
Yes.
Mr. DeCharleroi?
Yes.
Mr. Dewey?
No.
Mr. Harper?
Yes.
You need a quorum for that to pass?
We had a quorum.
3 out of 4?
All right, so,
Gotcha, okay.
and as this is not a regular meeting,